Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler in my home office with the sun setting behind me so I don't have much time for this vlog. I have made it my personal mission to put this story coming out of Canada on so much blast that everyone's going to hear about it, and everyone who hears about it is going to amplify it to 10 more people so the world can appreciate the depravity of the insanity of the transgender nonsense coming out of Canada. This is the story of a man named Mohammed Al-Balouz who is accused to have stabbed his wife to death, stabbed her several dozen times, drowned the children, his two own children, in the bathtub, then apparently is alleged to have drunk something to try to kill himself after he set the bed on fire. Police come, put out the fire. They see Mohammed Al-Balouz's wife stabbed to death in the bed. The children dead, from what I understand as to the details, and as if that's not the most shocking part of this story, 2 years later, as this man stands trial, at some point in the interim, he decided he's a woman, he slapped on a cheap wig, some red nail polish, and now he insists to be called she, her, and everyone in the judicial system obliges to the point where this man is in a women's correctional facility in Quebec. From one Graham Linehan's Substack in an article titled "A Week in the War on Women, Monday 11th November to Sunday 17th November, this is what is reported. Radio-Canada, a man on trial for the murder of his wife and children has begun identifying as trans and is being held in a women's prison. Mohammed Al-Balouz is currently standing trial in Longueuil, Quebec for murdering his own family in September 2022. He is accused of killing his wife and his two small children, boys aged 2 and 5, before trying to take his own life. Prosecutor Laurence Lamoureux told the court that Al-Balouz killed his wife, Cynthia Bussière, stabbing her 23 times and then murdered his two little boys, Eliam and Zach. A news report from 2023 suggests the two children were drowned. The victims were discovered inside the family home by firefighters who were responding to a fire alarm. They reportedly found Al-Balouz lying between the bodies of his two young sons, apparently having tried to kill himself by drinking cleaning fluid before setting the apartment alight. And if you can believe it, as shocking as that is, what is absolutely even more shocking is the utter insanity of the system, because, as I said, at some point, Al-Balouz started to identify as a woman. Listen to what the prosecutor is alleged to have said in opening statements during this trial, which is ongoing right now. At the outset of the trial, the prosecution counsel, Laurence Lamoureux, felt obliged to apologize to the court for referring to the accused as male. Quote, "On the day in question, the evidence will reveal the accused presented himself as a man," end quote, he said. Quote, "So don't be surprised if we, or witnesses, refer to the accused as a man. It isn't out of lack of respect or intended to shock people," end quote. Because heaven forbid a man accused of infanticide and stabbing his wife to death has his newly acquired gender identity disrespected. Judge Eric Downs also informed the court that Al-Balouz is incarcerated at the Leclerc's Women Detention Center. This story comes across my feed. I open up an article in the Gazette, that's Montreal's paper, or at least digital paper right now, and I'm reading an article, and I don't understand what I'm reading because I knew that the individual's name was Mohammed Al-Balouz, and yet somehow, for some reason, in the article, the Gazette is saying she murdered her wife, and this is her defense, etc., etc. The media is entertaining this absolute insanity. It is legitimizing this abject insanity, and I'll read you some of the article. You just will not believe that this is the absolute state of Canada and media. From the Gazette, Brossard murder trial. Accused suggests dead wife killed their children. Mohammed Al-Balouz is charged with the murder of Cynthia Bussière and their two sons. All right, so far it just seems like standard reporting. They're reporting the names, etc. Then you get into the body of the article. When it came time to cross-examine the witness, Al-Balouz first repeated the Crown's theory of the case, that Al-Balouz killed her wife, Cynthia Bussière, by stabbing her repeatedly and then killed their two sons, Zach 2 and Eliam 5, in a way that left no signs of violence on the boys and then set fire inside the condominium. Now, I'm reading this article and I'm saying, what's going on here? I'm fairly certain that Al-Balouz is a man. Why are they referring to it as a her? Wait, it gets even worse, and the Gazette is not the only outlet to repeat this utter rubbish. Throughout the trial, Al-Balouz has had to ask all her questions from inside a prisoner's dock inside the courtroom. She reminded the jury that Fiorello's qualities as an expert witness were not called into question by her. Al-Balouz then revealed, quote, "the defense's theory," end quote, of the case. Quote, "If I submit to you that Cynthia Bussière killed the two children and then tried to kill the accused, are you able to give your expert opinion," end quote, "on the sequence in which the bloodstains occurred?" Al-Balouz asked. The witness replied with a blunt, quote, "No," end quote. Traces of Mohammed Al-Balouz's blood were found all over the condominium where she is alleged to have murdered her wife and their two children 2 years ago. This is insanity. This is insanity because on the one hand, it makes it impossible to understand what is going on here. You have a man, Mohammed Al-Balouz, being referred to as her. You're not sure who's killing who's the victim here. But more importantly, does this statistic go down as a violent act committed by a woman? Is this like 2 layers of concealment of what's actually going on here? here, was Mohammed Al-Balouz an illegal immigrant? Was he a legal immigrant? Was he born in Canada? Are they concealing the fact that potentially some of the illegals in Canada are committing vicious, vicious murders? Are they concealing the fact that potentially some legal immigrants in Canada are committing vicious, vicious murders, and then concealing it with these absolutely insane confusions of gender from a person who is a man? But at some point between the murder, the alleged murder, and the trial, this person who is a man said that now I identify as a woman because I slapped on a cheap wig and some red nail polish. Stick me in a women's detention center? This is absolute madness, and the world needs to know what the hell is going on in Canada. But when I said the Gazette is not the only guilty party in all of this, here's an article from CTV News, Global News, I'm not sure which one, but they are all guilty of this. From CTV News, trial begins for accused in 2022 Montreal area triple homicide. A woman and 2 children are dead following an apartment fire in Brassard on Montreal's South Shore on September 25, 2022.
A woman and 2 children are dead following an apartment fire in Brassard on Montreal's South Shore on September 25, 2022.
A South Shore woman accused of murdering her wife and the couple's children was in court today for the beginning of the trial. The accused faces 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder. Holy sweet merciful hell, you might actually read that and not understand that it's a man who murdered his wife and 2 children. Allegedly, is alleged to have murdered his wife and 2 children. You're going to now not understand that this might be a case of domestic violence. It might be a case of illegal immigrants or legal immigrants committing vicious, vicious murders in Canada. You're going to read that someone was murdered by a woman and not understand what the hell is going on because we've changed the meaning of words to mean absolutely nothing. We have defied good sense, common logic, and decency, human decency, to now start referring to an alleged brutal murderer as a she because this guy, in all of his infinite psychosis, has now decided that another way to victimize the victims yet again is by playing a game with the system and saying, you will now call me a man, and the system plays along with this lunatic. Later on in the article, in the prisoner's box, Al-Balouz sported a long, dirty blonde wig, manicured red fingernails, wore a woman's blazer, and wished to be identified as a woman named Lavana. The accused doesn't have a lawyer. Crown Prosecutor Laurence Lamoureux said the accused would be identified as a man during the trial because that's how witnesses identified Al-Balouz before his arrest. Oh my goodness, what a gracious concession from the prosecutor. They're going to refer to Al-Balouz as a man because that's how he identified at the time he's alleged to have murdered his wife and 2 children. No, that's what he was at the time he's alleged to have murdered his wife and 2 children, and that's what he is today. And all of you should be utterly, utterly ashamed of yourselves for playing along with this mental delusion, this mental illness. I don't know who's more mentally ill, the guy who's alleged to have murdered his wife and 2 children and then decided he's a woman, or the idiots playing along, calling him a her for the sake of not shocking the members of the jury. Holy hell, I cannot believe what's going on in Canada. And by the way, before we get any further, make sure that you're liked, shared, subscribed, have notifications turned on, drop a comment because it feeds the algorithm. But this is utter insanity in every sense of the word. Every participant in this charade of insanity needs to be put on blast. The Gazette, CTV News. I've actually DM'd that journalist to ask him if they're being obliged to do this, if they're doing it against their own good reason, against their own good conscience, being required by the editors to refer to a man as a she because the man says, now I decided that I'm a she. The man is being kept apparently in a women's detention facility, and so now in addition to having murdered his wife, you got women in a women's detention facility who need to be protected from this alleged murderer. All in the name of tolerance. When an alleged murderer decides he's a woman, you better stick him in a women's detention facility and sell the rope to the person who's going to use it to hang you. All right, I have worked myself into a tizzy and the sun has set. That's the vlog. You know what to do, but most importantly, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, get outside, talk to people in real life, put this story on blast, share away, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah.
Sounds like someone here's a transphobe.
Don't you dare! I'm trans people's biggest supporter. What I think you are is a terrible sport.
Transphobes?
And if you dare call me a transphobe again, I'm gonna—
You're gonna what? Beat me up? You're gonna beat me up, transphobe? Yeah, I didn't think so. See you later, kids. Come on over and see old Auntie Heather if you want to see what a real strong woman is like.